Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about responsible cultural signaling in the activities we do. All right, so I love Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think Dungeons and Dragons is a game. I think it's far more than a game. I think what Gary Gygax accomplished in 1974 is really has never been accomplished in all of humanity. I think it's a human improvement engine that was specifically designed to help people and is doing that today. And it has its own gravity, and it draws in specifically charismatic, intelligent, confident people. And that's why incredible things continue to happen around Dungeons & Dragons constantly. So I don't think that Dungeons & Dragons isn't a game. However, it kind of doesn't matter that I don't think that, because the rest of the world thinks that Dungeons & Dragons is a game, and they interact with it as a game. So today, I want to talk about the idea of why things in and around games very much matter, and proof of it, okay? And why we need to do, when we engage, when we participate in Dungeons & Dragons, it's critically important that we do responsible cultural signaling. All right, so all of this is being prompted by the World Cup. So basically, the World Cup is happening right now. It's the world's soccer competition. And someone I care about really loves soccer. And so I literally have, soccer being watched in my house pretty frequently now, right? I'm not a huge fan of soccer. I don't really like it. But I'm learning a lot about soccer as the world is really engaging with the World Cup. So let's talk about this, all right? So first of all, the idea that even if we just take for granted that Dungeons & Dragons is a game, which I don't take that for granted, and I don't even believe that. But if you think that Dungeons & Dragons is a game, that doesn't excuse you from responsible cultural signaling in your Dungeons & Dragons games as a dungeon master. And it doesn't mean that what happens there doesn't matter. And I think, and this is like, and it very much vexes me when people are like, oh, all that's important in Dungeons & Dragons is that you're having fun. And I'm like, no, that is a ridiculous statement. And I think the World Cup is proving this. If you think that games don't matter, people get hurt. Like this is exactly what's happening in the World Cup in two ways. So first of all, there is open conversation. So what's happening right now in 2022 World Cup? There's a world tournament for soccer. To build the stadiums where they're playing that, there's open conversation in over 100+ mainstream media that hundreds or over 1,000 people died to build those stadiums. This game prompted death. Period. End of sentence, right? And it's not like, oh, we think. There's hundreds of mainstream media saying these stadiums, the building of these stadiums for these games meant that X number of people died. The only thing I don't know is if it's hundreds or over 1,000. That's alarming, right? And so one of the things I'm trying to get the world to just wake up, okay? Because the reality is, honestly, we don't hit each other with sticks anymore, right? We're humans, right? And so we have shifted our battles to a much higher stage, right? The only people who are fighting right now are absolutely ridiculous fools like Vladimir Putin, right? Vladimir Putin is a laughable nuisance at this point, right? Basically, Zelensky with a T-shirt and America's surplus arms is schooling Vladimir Putin every single day. And people used to think that Russia was a world power. Now we know they're not even a regional power. They are a joke to be laughed at. America could take over Russia on any weekend we chose. We know that now, right? Because Zelensky, with a green T-shirt and a few extra of our arms, just is backhanding, figuratively, Vladimir every single day, and has made Vladimir Putin an absolute joke. He's a foolish joke, right? He's nothing. Right, he's a weekend project for America. Whenever we choose to take the entire country of Russia, because they've hid Brittany Griner in a penal colony somewhere, right? So it's just really and so that means is only the most savage barbarian humans are still hitting each other with sticks and doing physical combat. It's ridiculous, right? The world has moved on. And what this means is that our art and our games, people are dying for them. Like, this is the new battlefield, right? And I think so when you look at an activity, even though it's a game, the idea that people ain't going to die for it is absurd. Right? And so when we come to Dungeons & Dragons, we need to be very careful to do responsible cultural signaling. Now, what do I mean by responsible cultural signaling? Well, when we make games and people do games, they iterate it. They do it again and again and again. And soccer has the worst the most irresponsible cultural signaling I have ever seen in any activity ever. Okay? It's called flopping. I cannot believe, it's hard. This is another thing. People common sense is done. There's just no shared facts anymore. There's no more common sense. People will say, hey, if you want to I really dislike soccer. And so people will give me this advice: watch soccer and learn soccer and you'll like it more. The more I see of soccer, the more I understand of soccer, the more I dislike it. I really dislike. I passionately dislike soccer, and the more I learn about it, the more I dislike it. And the biggest one is flopping. This is the worst thing you could do in any activity, in my opinion. It's just horrendous if you're not actively doing evil. This is the most irresponsible. I don't think they're trying to be evil doing this in soccer. I think they're being outrageously irresponsible. Okay, so if you're not trying to do evil, this is about the worst thing you can do. So let me explain what flopping is and why it's it is a massive irresponsible cultural signaling. Here we go. I'm going to explain it to you. All right. So in soccer, if you run and you trip, you are trained to fall down and pretend you were hurt. What? This is outrageous, right? We shouldn't be building a society where we are ignoring or laughing or even throwing insults when someone has been injured. But that's exactly the culture that soccer is building. It's saying when somebody falls on the ground and is really hurt, don't pay attention to that. That's what soccer flops do, right? It's an iteration of fake harm. Outrageously bad, right? And we are reaching a point where bad things are happening connected to our activities because we think our activities don't matter. And this is what I'm telling you with Dungeons & Dragons. You are taking some of the most charismatic, intelligent, confident people on the planet and putting them together at a table. And you are simulating life. If you don't understand that, then you're going to end up doing outrageously irresponsible cultural signaling. We are shaping people with Dungeons & Dragons. It's a powerful tool. And it is a powerful tool whether you understand it or not. And this is my point. Dungeons & Dragons is a chainsaw. You can build a log cabin with it, or you can cut your hand off with it. And if you don't think that somebody can cut their hand off with a tabletop role-playing game, I want you to go look up Adam Cobell. He had a great life. That dude chopped his hand off, figuratively, with a tabletop role-playing game. It wasn't Dungeons & Dragons, but it's the new Avatar Airbender game is based on it, right? And if you want to see somebody's life slam into a wall at 100 miles an hour and go from great to zero in no time flat, I'm telling you, the reason why I don't want people to say game next to Dungeons & Dragons is it leads to some bad places, right? And people just don't understand where we've arrived as humans. We have arrived as humans in a space where these extracurriculars, this isn't a joke. Like, people died to build the stadiums that this game is being played in for the world, according to many multiple mainstream media sites. It's not even debated. The only thing that's being debated is if it was hundreds or over 1,000, right? And so I really am saying, except for that fool over in Russia, Vladimir Putin, nobody's hitting each other with sticks anymore, right? And we need to start putting more, and everybody's like, oh, it's hard to do comedy. Yes, we take everything so seriously, and we are living so high on on Maslow's pinnacle that we need to take our extracurriculars very, very serious. And if we don't, people die. Like, this is where we've landed. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear this because they want to sit down and go, oh, Dungeons and Dragons about cutting goblins in half. No, it's not, right? It is a life simulation engine, in my humble opinion. It is a human improvement engine. And when you don't even know what a thing is, you are definitely likely to cut yourself on the edges. And that's what I'm trying to say is, Dungeons and Dragons can be the best thing you ever ran into, or it can be really, really, in my opinion, very apt to do irresponsible cultural signaling, which is exactly what soccer is doing. And I'll tell you right now, okay? I'm just going to say this. We have professional soccer in America. Soccer, please. I would like to be a fan of what you do, okay? The first thing you need to change is flopping. I'm an American. First of all, if you ain't hurt and you roll around on the ground like you've been hurt, what is my response supposed to be to that, right? And then two, like, that's just not responsible cultural signaling. You're building a very bad habit. You are telling a lot of people when somebody falls down and they're not hurt, or they are hurt, don't take it seriously. Don't think anything happened, right? Like, because any soccer fan would be a fool to give even one moment's of sympathy to any soccer player that fell, right? Like, no matter how hard they hit, because it so frequently is faked, right? So when we are doing an activity, whether it's a game or not, we need to think about what is responsible cultural signaling. All that is my humble opinion. I'd like to hear your humble opinion. Thank you. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.